In saying that, we also need to look at how do we transform the ministry of itself so that we move away from two things. One, the 73% that we now pay for administration. 73% of the budget goes into administration. And when you look at what is available for capital, it is no wonder that we are not performing. So the issue really has to be, how do we bundle services, not depriving the sector of anything that is critical? How do we make sure the idea about guidance counselors versus career counselors? We made an application several years ago to the Ministry of Finance for additional persons so we could do that kind of division. We were told, no, your ratio is already too high in terms of who you have on staff. But it may be that you have to give up something to get something. But these are cold analyses that need to be done in an unemotional way, and the rational and the reasons and the processes dissected, and we get buy-in from the rest of the country as to how we get it done. At the moment, it's said that to get some of the policies implemented, you need an increase per capita for each student of about $51,000. That's what you need just to get the system up to par. Where are we going to get the resources from? And I would just like to say that, you know, the three legs on which performance has stood, and where I see from where I sit, we quarrel with some of the principals, but a principal who says, this is my school, and I'm going to run this school, that is a principal who succeeds. Sometimes parents quarrel and say, the principal thinks it's her school, but it's because she thinks it's her school why she goes out of her way. She's not alone. She has a board that is interested in what is going on and takes the time, and she has parents who are ever present. If we could just get those three stakeholders to take hold of the system, to be genuinely interested in not just paying visits now and then, and a board membership is not a sinecure for something that was done in the past or something you intend to do, but a real responsibility in terms of performance and accountability. If we could get those three stakeholders to really be involved, I think we would be well on the way to getting the accountability and the transformation that we need. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much. I think many worries I had that people might start to wane at this time of day have been put paid. I think that was a very stimulating presentation, and I'm very happy that it's come really, as I say, because now we're moving from concept to starting to think about implementation and how we operationalize all this. And so I think the presentation has really helped to focus minds on that. We have a few minutes left, about a half hour. Can we, I'll just throw the floor open for this is your last chance to speak today at any rate. So grab it now, yes.
Thank you very much.
I just remind everybody to identify yourself when speaking for the benefit of everyone else here.
My name is Winsome Gordon, and the head of the Jamaica Teaching Council. After 20 years in UNESCO, I'm sitting on the other side of the table. So you'll notice I've remained quiet. I just wanted to listen and hear people's comment. Mrs. Maxine Henry Wilson made a lot of important points, and I would like to underscore sustainability, because I joined education in 1963, so I've been through changes and transformation since Mr. Allen was Minister of Education. And what has happened in Jamaica is that we have not sustained the changes in the system. And what we do, which is not unique to Jamaica, is that when the Ministry of Finance fails to finance the program, we start a project. And then with all the aura of the project is successful, so successful I could go back to Control Data Corporation and computers, which were huge things for $8,000. And children read. But nothing happened after that. And so in this transformation process, we must underscore sustainability. And also in our dialogue, it's good for educators to talk to educators, and most times you're on the same wavelength. But we need the Ministry of Finance, the Ministry of Health, and the Ministry of Social Security and Labor. Yes. We need to have those ministries because that's all part of education. We have to bear in mind that we are in a socio-economic environment. And when the socio-economic development is urban focused, as it is in many parts of the developing countries, then the rural schools and the rural education delivery do not produce the same outcomes. So we have to be talking to the wider Jamaica. The whole transformation process has to be a socio-economic process in which education will play a critical part. And I really appreciate listening to Maxine because she has just really hit the nail on the head. Thank you.
Next question.
Hi, Kimmery Spence CaPRI. I just thought, in light of, I think, what I thought of Mrs. Henry Wilson's presentation in terms of an accountability affects all, particularly one aspect which had to do with the actual financing of it and getting the other parts of the government machinery to buy into the need for this transformation process and the type of resources that it would require. I wanted to see if our representative here from PREAL could talk to how those kind of very real obstacles and challenges were dealt with in the other countries in which they've worked in Latin America.
There are testing systems that don't know if they have a budget 3 months before they're supposed to go to the field. So that is a real problem. I worry sometimes. A warning from observation. There's a great deal of enthusiasm for testing, for example, that often is accompanied by an almost countervailing underappreciation of the technical difficulties of doing it well. And it worries me, especially when we speak about accountability and, for example, testing value added, which is often a first step toward holding teachers accountable or schools accountable for their work, because we have to be very certain that the inferences that we make are valid and reliable. The best estimate of how long, you think about judging a school or a teacher, as we all know, those of us that have either been students or have been teachers, groups of students are highly variable. And this variation occurs even within communities that we deem very homogeneous, whatever the particulars of the community might be. Darrell Bach and Richard Wolff have demonstrated pretty conclusively that you need 5 to 6 years of data on any teacher or school before you can begin to assess value added and ascribe responsibility, to account for the variation in groups of students that they attend over the 5 or 6 year period. There need to be, in addition to all the other standards you're talking about, standards for accountability systems. What are the technical standards? What are the ethical standards? What are the standards that you would be willing to adhere to before you make inferences about people's work and the quality of the work and begin processes for separation, etc. So it is expensive. I think it's well worth the investment. It's probably much less expensive than other much less well documented investments that we make in education, but it's often underappreciated by systems when they begin.
Can I add? I'll be very quick. I just wanted to underscore what Gilbert has just mentioned. I think one of the issues with this accountability reforms, certainly in Latin America, but I'm sure it happens in other places as well, is that it suddenly has become the thing to do, and it sort of becomes, all of it becomes about evaluation and testing, and definitely a lot of countries tend to rush into these things without giving it a lot of thought. I'll give you the example of Mexico. The president in a speech says, I instruct the Minister of Education to set up a teacher evaluation system in 3 months. And the minister has to do it. They have to set up whatever system. So for 3 months, nobody in the ministry does anything but set up the system. And what you end up with is not a very good system. system, obviously, because you'd need a lot more than 3 months to get it up and running. The thing, though, is that you run a risk of focusing so much on the test that, Ms. Maxine mentioned that a lot of teachers and principals and leaders know what needs to be done.